A lot of people are not just tired. They're burnt out from performing steadiness, usefulness, and emotional control all day, while their nervous system keeps running long after their mind is done. It is 10:47 on a Tuesday night. You drop your bag by the door, kick off your shoes, and your dog is right there, tail low, body pressed against your shin, nose pushing into your palm. You scratch behind the ears for maybe 4 seconds. Say something like, "Hey, buddy," and walk straight to the kitchen. The dog follows. You don't notice. You're already scrolling your phone, reheating leftovers, replaying a conversation from work that went sideways. The dog sits at your feet and stares at your face. You glance down once, maybe twice, and think he is calm tonight. He is not calm. He has been waiting for this exact moment for 9 hours. Not the way you wait for a package or a Friday. The way a body waits for oxygen after being held underwater. Every cell oriented toward one event, and you just walked past it. This is the misread that happens in almost every home, every single evening. And nobody flags it because the dog doesn't scream. The dog doesn't slam a door. It does something far more invisible. It goes quiet. It stops bringing you the toy. It greets you a little slower each week. It sleeps in a different room. And you interpret all of that as maturity, settling down, getting older, maybe even finally being well trained. A woman in the comments once wrote about her rescue Chippy. He was found crying beside his dead sibling. He never learned to be alone after that. She brings him to a neighbor. When she leaves and still he cries. She said it like an apology, like she had already failed him. But what she was actually describing, without knowing the term, was an animal whose nervous system never got the signal that separation ends for Chippy. Every departure is the original one. Every closed door is permanent. That is not a behavioral quirk. That is a stress architecture built into the body, one that most owners walk past every night in socks, sweatpants, thinking everything is fine because nothing is broken and nobody is barking. Here is what makes this so hard to catch. The dogs who suffer the most from this are often the ones you call easy. They don't chew the couch. They don't howl, they just dim. A little less light behind the eyes each month. A little less urgency at the door. And the owner reads that fading is peace when what is actually happening inside that dog, at the level of hormones, at the level of the nervous system itself, tells a completely different story. Your dog's pupils dilated the moment you walked through the door tonight. Not from excitement, from assessment. At 12 inches off the ground, inside a skull, wired by 40,000 years of cooperative survival. Your arrival is not a greeting. It is a full spectrum scan. Gait speed, shoulder tension, the ratio of exhalation to inhalation, the volatile organic compounds lifting off your skin, cortisol, adrenaline metabolites, lactic acid, all of it pouring through the vomeronasal organ before your keys hit the counter. This is not affection. This is threat evaluation. And here is what no one tells you. When your sympathetic nervous system is still firing from the day, the emails, the performance, the held jaw, the shallow chest breathing you haven't noticed in 6 hours. Your dog's HPA axis responds in kind. Their hypothalamus reads your dysregulation. Way a seismograph reads tremor, not as emotion, as data, unstable signal from the primary attachment figure. Cortisol rises, heart rate ticks upward. The body enters a low-grade preparatory state that looks like nothing at all. Maybe a slight freeze, maybe ears pinned half a degree flatter. Maybe they don't bring the toy tonight. You think they're calm, they're actually holding still the way prey holds still. And the thing that makes this devastating is the mirror. Because when you sit on that couch radiating tension you can't even name, and your dog presses their ribcage against your thigh, what is happening is not neediness. It is co-regulation. Their vagus nerve is attempting to entrain with yours. Respiratory sinus arrhythmia, the rhythm of their breath, is literally trying to slow your own autonomic cycling down. They're offering their parasympathetic system as a bridge back to baseline. Not because they were trained to, because at the level of the oldest mammalian circuitry, proximity to a calm body is medicine, and your dog is trying to be that medicine. Even when your body is broadcasting a signal that to their nervous system reads as soft danger. The cost of this is invisible and cumulative. Every evening your body stays locked in sympathetic overdrive. Their system absorbs a fraction of that. Load allostatic wear, not dramatic, not obvious, just a slow, quiet accumulation. The kind that eventually rewires how readily their brain tips into vigilance, how quickly their body returns to rest, how deeply they actually sleep beside you at night. Here's the part no one prepared you for, the biology. When you raised your voice at your dog last Tuesday, maybe it was the couch, maybe the garbage, maybe you were just tired. Their adrenal glands fired before the second syllable left your mouth. Cortisol flooded the bloodstream, triggering the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. The same stress cascade that runs your own worst panic, activated in an animal with no capacity to rationalize why the person they orbit just became a threat. Their sympathetic nervous system locked in, heart rate climbed, pupils fixed, muscles loaded for escape from a danger. that lives in the same house and controls the food. This is not guilt, this is endocrinology. And here is what makes it worse: that cortisol does not clear in minutes. In a canine body under repeated, unpredictable stress, allostatic load accumulates, the biological cost of a nervous system that never fully powers down. The brain rewires. Threat assessment becomes the default operating mode. And here is the part that should stop you cold: it regulates yours too. The rhythm of a dog moving slowly, breathing audibly, choosing where to go. Your own respiration rate drops to match your own vagal tone shifts. Co-regulation is not a metaphor. It is a measurable bilateral nervous system event, documented in studies on affiliative proximity between humans and bonded animals. You were not walking your dog. Your dog was walking your cortisol back down to baseline. So the restlessness you notice at home, the pent-up energy, the behavioral fractures that seem to surface from nowhere, those are not mysteries. They're the downstream cost of a nervous system that never got permission to complete its own recovery cycle. And that cost doesn't land equally on every dog, because every dog is wired differently from birth. So here's the part where I need you to hear something clearly, because everything up to this point may have left a weight in your chest. You might be replaying moments right now. The time you pushed your dog off the couch because you had a bad day. The morning you dragged them past the thing they wanted to sniff because you were already late. Afternoon you locked them in a room because guests were coming, and you didn't want the chaos. And somewhere underneath all of that replaying, there is a voice telling you that you should have known better, that a good owner would have read the signals, that the fact you didn't mean something about who you are. Stop. Because that voice is lying to you, and it is lying with your own memories as evidence. You were never given a manual for translating between completely different nervous systems. No one handed you a chart saying this breed processes novelty differently through the sympathetic nervous system at twice the speed yours does, or that this dog's cortisol clearance rate is 14 hours while yours just resets overnight. You were told to love them, feed them, and walk them, and you did all of that. What nobody explained is that your dog's entire emotional architecture was built on a different biological clock, a different sensory hierarchy, a different threshold for what feels safe and what feels like the world just shifted under their feet. When you corrected the dog who needed to run, you weren't being cruel. You were applying a human logic of stillness equals calm to a body that was engineered for motion. When you pushed the anxious dog into a crowded park hoping exposure would help, you were borrowing a principle from your own psychology, handing it to a nervous system that doesn't metabolize social stress like yours. When you called them clingy for following you room to room, you were measuring their attachment against a human baseline that has nothing to do with how canine co-regulation actually works. None of that makes you a bad owner. It makes you a human trying to love something whose inner world operates on a frequency you were never taught to. Here the mismatch was always biological before it was behavioral. Two mammals sharing a home, both trying to feel safe, both running completely different software to get there. Your dog was not broken by your mistakes, and you weren't failing every time you misread a signal. You were doing what every person does when they care deeply, but only have their own experience to translate from. That guilt you're carrying right now, the one that tightened your throat 2 minutes ago, it is not a sign that you failed your dog. It is a sign that you are paying attention, maybe for the first time, to the gap between intention and biology. And the fact that you're still here, still listening, still willing to look at this honestly, tells you something important about what kind of relationship is still possible, because the shift that changes everything doesn't start with a training protocol or a correction plan. Tonight, when you get home, something is going to happen that you've let pass through you 1,000 times without stopping. Your dog is going to look at you, not glance. Look. And for once, instead of reaching for the leash or the food bowl, I want you to do the smallest thing that will feel a little strange. Sit down on the floor, not the couch, the floor. Get low enough that your dog doesn't have to crane upward to find your face, and then do absolutely nothing for 2 or 3 minutes. That is the entire ask. No commands, no training, no special voice. Just your body on their level with nowhere to be. Here is why this works and why it works on you more than them. When you lower yourself to the ground, your proprioceptive system receives a signal that the day's vertical tension, the standing, the performing, the holding yourself upright through meetings, through traffic and decisions is finally over. Your shoulders will drop, you'll feel it. In the first 30 seconds, your breathing will lengthen without you choosing to lengthen it. And your dog, who has been reading your cortisol signature, will register that shift before your conscious mind does. What happens next is co-regulation in its most ancient form. They may lean into you, or set their chin on your knee. They may simply sit nearby and exhale. That exhale is not nothing. Research on social buffering shows that the proximity of a bonded companion, one who carries no judgment and no agenda, can measurably lower sympathetic nervous system activation in both bodies at the same time. You aren't calming your dog down. You're falling into the same rhythm together, the way two heartbeats in close contact drift towards synchrony without either one deciding to. And the part that matters most is what stops. The mental loop, the replaying of conversations, the low hum of everything you should have done differently today. Rumination struggles to survive in a body that has dropped below its own line and is being quietly anchored by another living creature who wants nothing from you except presence. That isn't poetry, that is your vagus nerve doing exactly what it was designed to do. When the environment finally tells it, the threat is over. You don't need to do this for an hour or buy anything. You don't need to learn a method. 2 minutes on the floor, eyes soft, hands still. Letting your dog decide how close to come. So try it tonight, and then come back. Here and tell me what you noticed, not what your dog did, though you can share that too. Tell me what shifted in your own body, where did the tension break? First, tonight, do one restorative thing first. Sit on the floor for 2 or 3 minutes. Notice whether your breath gets longer, or your shoulders start to drop. And notice how quickly the rumination begins to break. This is for your recovery, not a performance review.